People like to say they go to the theater for the story, the world building, the big ideas. But let's be honest, sometimes audiences didn't line up because the movie was brilliant. They showed up because of her. The character who wasn't on the poster, the woman who wasn't sold as the lead, yet somehow she became the reason tickets sold out, scenes were replayed, and films refused to be forgotten. Some of these movies were doubted, misunderstood, even criticized at release, until a single female supporting role changed everything. Tonight, we're not talking about plots or special effects. We're talking about the women who made science fiction work when it shouldn't have. These are 10 sci-fi films that burned the box office because of a female supporting character. Barbarella, 1968. If Barbarella had relied on its story, it would have vanished within months. Critics at the time called the plot childish, the pacing erratic, and the tone confused. And they were right. But none of that mattered once Jane Fonda appeared on screen. What experts often point out is that Barbarella didn't succeed because it was clever. It succeeded because it was fearless. Fonda didn't play the character as an object trapped inside male fantasy. She played her as someone fully in control of her sexuality, curiosity, and pleasure. In the late 1960s, that was explosive. Audiences didn't remember the villain. They didn't quote the dialogue. They remembered how Barbarella moved through the film with confidence, innocence, and desire all at once. Marketing historians have openly admitted that ticket sales spiked based almost entirely on Fonda's image. Without her, Barbarella would have been another forgotten sci-fi oddity. With her, it became a cultural artifact. Starcrash didn't try to hide what it was. Released just 1 year after Star Wars, it was a low-budget Italian attempt to ride a global phenomenon. The problem was obvious from the first frame. Cheap sets, awkward special effects, wooden dialogue, and a story stitched together from better movies. Critics dismissed it instantly as a shameless knockoff, and by any traditional standard, Starcrash should have vanished from theaters within weeks. But it didn't. And the Italian filmmakers themselves later admitted why. Caroline Munro. Munro was not cast to elevate the screenplay. She was cast to replace it. Industry insiders have openly acknowledged that the film's commercial strategy centered almost entirely on her presence. In a movie where the universe felt artificial, Munro felt real. Her confidence, physical appeal, and effortless charisma gave audiences something solid to hold on to when the narrative fell apart. What made her performance effective wasn't depth or complexity. It was command. Munro moved through the film as if the chaos around her didn't matter. She understood the tone instinctively, playful, exaggerated, unapologetically superficial, and leaned into it. That self-awareness turned weakness into charm. Marketing reflected this reality. Posters, trailers, and promotional stills featured Munro front and center, often minimizing the sci-fi elements altogether. Ticket buyers weren't curious about galactic politics or laser battles. They came to see her. Today, Starcrash survives as a cult film, not because it's good, but because it's unforgettable. Strip away Caroline Munro, and nothing remains. With her, the movie worked. Not as science fiction, but as spectacle. Sexy charisma didn't just help Starcrash, it was the movie. One Million Years BC is often remembered less as a film and more as a moment in pop culture. And that distinction explains exactly why it sold tickets. From a storytelling perspective, the movie was thin. Dialogue was minimal, characters were primitive by design, and the plot moved in broad, almost mythic strokes. Critics at the time described it as visually striking but dramatically empty. By normal standards, this was not a movie that should have become a box office hit. And yet, it did. Film historians are blunt about the reason. Raquel Welch. More specifically, Raquel Welch in that costume. The fur bikini was not an afterthought. It was the movie's commercial engine. In the mid-1960s, audiences were in the middle of a cultural shift. Hollywood was cautiously testing how far visual sensuality could go, and 1 million years BC stepped directly into that opening. Experts argue that the costume worked because it felt both shocking and safe. It suggested raw sexuality, but wrapped it in fantasy and prehistory, far removed from modern social rules. Welch's body became a visual spectacle that transcended the film itself. Posters, lobby cards, and magazine covers focused almost exclusively on her image, not the dinosaurs, not the story. But it wasn't only the outfit. Welch projected physical confidence and calm dominance. She didn't play helpless. She moved like someone who belonged to that brutal world. That combination, exposed skin paired with strength, was rare at the time, and audiences responded instantly. Decades later, critics agree. 1 million years BC didn't sell tickets because people cared about prehistoric tribes. It sold tickets because Raquel Welch's image became iconic. Strip her from the film, and it collapses into obscurity. With her, it became immortal. When Logan's Run was released in 1976, it fascinated audiences, but also confused them. The premise was dark, a utopian future where people are executed at the age of 30 to maintain social balance. Critics praised the concept, but noted a major problem. The world felt sterile, artificial, and emotionally distant. The ideas were bold, but without a human entry point, the film risked becoming cold science fiction that audiences admired rather than loved. That entry point was Jenny Agutter. Agutter's character, Jessica 6, wasn't just a romantic interest. She was the emotional temperature control of the film. Experts often point out that Logan's Run works because Jessica embodied everything the city suppressed: youth, sensuality, curiosity, and rebellion. Her beauty wasn't accidental. It was carefully integrated into the visual language of the film. Flowing hair, soft lighting, and revealing costumes contrasted sharply with the clean, controlled environment around her. This contrast mattered. Agutter's natural, almost classical attractiveness made the artificial world feel oppressive by comparison. Audiences didn't just question the system intellectually, they felt why it was wrong. Marketing leaned heavily into her image because it softened the film's disturbing themes and made the future feel seductive before revealing its cruelty. Unlike exploitation films, Logan's Run used sex appeal strategically. Jessica's sensuality represented freedom itself. She wasn't passive or decorative. She was the proof that life beyond control was worth risking everything for. Without her, the film might have remained an interesting concept piece. With her, it became a box office success and a lasting sci-fi classic. In short, many sci-fi films from the 1960s to the 1980s didn't succeed because their stories were strong. They succeeded because the female lead was visually irresistible. Her sex appeal and confident physical presence pulled audiences into worlds that were otherwise cold, strange, or difficult to connect with. Beauty became the hook, the bridge, and sometimes the only reason these films sold tickets and stayed memorable.